Evening everyone. Hi, I'm Thomas. I'm a PhD student here in Cardiff, and normally I work on galaxies, but we're not going to talk about that much today. So what we're going to talk about, is who says astronomers don't have a sense of humour, and we're going to start off with the most boring bit of this talk, which is this thing called the archive. So if you've not heard of the archive before, I'm not surprised. This is essentially, it's a preprint server. It's where people put their papers while they're still going through the whole peer review, another scientist checks you've not just talked nonsense for like 20 pages. So we put it up there so people can see it while it goes through that process. But on the 1st of April every year, people like to post joke papers or April Fools papers. And yeah, you'll notice this is not April anymore, we're now into May, so May-pril Fools, I guess. So these are sort of tongue-in-cheek, meant to be a bit of fun. They're very clearly not in the sort of conspiracy theory sort of realm, so they don't get picked up too much by that sort of rubbish newspapers. To give you a sort of idea of what sort of things we're on about, this one from last year, that looks terrible on the projector. So a paper from a couple of years ago looked at the animal that's seen the most total solar eclipses. They worked out when they were, where they would have covered the Earth, and discovered that they think it's the Atlantic hermit horseshoe crab has probably seen the most. Or this one from a couple of years ago talked about the deeper learning in astronomy, because as we all know, the best way to do astronomy is black box machine learning, deep learning models, but they come up with a novel new idea of maybe get some humans to do it. Maybe it'll catch on, I'm not sure. Another one, they were looking at the planetary theory of everything, because stars, galaxies, none of that stuff exists. It's just all planets. It's planets all the way down. I think they were trying to get more money towards like exoplanetary science, but from the same year, somebody else said, no, planets, exoplanetary, they don't exist. Sorry, Holly. It's just stars are all just funny shapes, and that just explains everything. And one for the Star Trek fans in the room. The one looks at the violations of the Prime Directive by Voyager flying way too close to planetary rings. They determined if there were any moon-based civilizations in the rings of these planets that had maybe shadow-based religions, would be very screwed up by Voyager. So that's the sort of tongue-in-cheek thing we're going for. This year had a whole new load of April Fool's papers. I'm not going to go through all of them because there were actually quite a lot. The first one is actually a follow-up on a previous one, a thing called pasta markers. So you know that astronomers like to make nice visualizations of all their data, and last year somebody came out with a new visualization package that you can have all your data points with bits of pasta. This year, pasta markers 2 with all new color maps. So previously, your pasta markers, they were all hollow, they weren't filled in, and you couldn't really do much with color. This year, they filled them all in. And they've got a load of new colour maps, and some of them, I apologise if you have difficulty with colour, they do acknowledge some of them are just not colourblind friendly, but they let you make nice, interesting plots with, one on the left is a sort of carbonara type colour map, and on the right they claim it's ragu, but I don't think your ragu is meant to be that colour, so no. But yeah, it's nice to see some evolution in the field, I guess. If anyone has been following the news, Cardiff Uni is in a bit of a tough spot financially at the minute. £30 million deficit and all that. We're a load of stuff. The strikes are paused just now. But there's a new paper in this year's tranche of April Fool's papers that may have the solution, and it's called promo plot. Because astronomers, we do these things called corner plots. They show correlations between different properties used all the time in things like exoplanet science and anything like that. But they have all this big empty space that we're not using. So, we've all seen monetize everything. So why don't we monetize all that empty space? There's a load of example logos here from this paper. We do not endorse any of these firms, but we could fill it with some logos for various sponsorships. This may be a way to fund Cardiff University, fund all our processing charges for the articles. Yeah, never know. They did some calculations. They based it on the advertising prices for, say, a whole page ad in the New York Times. Of course, we've got that's tiny, I don't know why. You've got to scale that for an astrophysical journal, so that's roughly 10,000 readers, not 10 million. You've got to scale it for that just to be 10% of a page, not 90% of a page. And when you do all of that, you end up with the price per promo plot of, about £5.50. As I said, Cardiff University has a £30 million deficit, so I think that's 5.5 million promo plots a year if we want to solve that. Of course, we might be able to bring that number down if we stick more logos on it. You know. But we don't have that many exoplanet scientists in the department, so I guess they've got to do a lot of them in their next papers. Now on to something called a Swift analysis. No, not the galaxy thing. There's a Swift code. I like the galaxies, we're not talking about the galaxies today. We're not talking about the telescope either. Taylor Swift, that's what this one's about. There were 2 Taylor Swift papers this year. This is from a PhD student in Portsmouth who's done an analysis of the Eras Tour and all the astrophysical terms that show up in Taylor Swift music. Because they span a wide range of things, from solar physics, to stars, to multi-messenger astronomy, and there's quite a lot of them in the various different albums that Taylor Swift has put out. The Tortured Poets department has a lot of them. Of course, you can then do some statistical analysis and weight these by the appearances in the Eras Tour, and the Tortured Poets department drops a couple. Midnights and Lover makes it to the top of the list there. But by far, it seems that Taylor Swift really likes multi-messenger astronomy. So that's things like magnetic fields and neutrinos and gravitational waves and all that sort of stuff. Clearly, it's one of the weird things in astronomy. And as time goes on, there are more and more astronomical terms showing up in our music. So clearly, we are getting through to Taylor Swift and all the astronomy stuff. If you want to know which songs with astronomy terms show up in the Eras Tour, that's the list there. But we'll move on to perhaps one of the most infamous physics jokes that's gone around for a while, and it's all about a farm. So a farmer has a dairy herd, and he wants to make a load more money, wants to get a load more milk production, get his profits up. So he gets like a bovine nutritionist to come in and have a look at the herd, that's what they're doing, goes away, and comes back a couple weeks later with a solution. He says, I can double your milk production, but it's going to cost you 3 times as much for this really special food. So the farmer says, well, that's no good, sends the nutritionist away. Thinks, well, maybe some efficiency might improvements might help. Gets an economist in. The economist comes in, has a look at all the books, has a look at all the potential savings, goes away, does all the sums, and comes back again and says, I can like triple your profits. He's like, oh, the farmer says, great, how are you going to do that? Fire all your staff. The farmer's a good guy, doesn't want to do that, tells the economist, go away. He says, okay, fine, go out on a limb, we'll get a physicist to come in. The physicist comes in and he does all of his measurements, he goes away, does all the calculations, and he comes back and says to the farmer, I can increase your profits 100-fold. And the farmer says, oh, that's amazing, how? He says, right, let's start with a spherical cow in a vacuum. Yeah, this is a sort of long-standing physics joke of if, as soon as we start trying to visualize a problem, we say, right, sphere, uniform density, we're going to ignore gravity, we're going to stick it in a vacuum, spherical cow. It is a bit mean on the cow, though. However, somebody has gone way too deep into this, because this is a very simplistic model. But what if we went to the higher multiples, or multipoles of the cow? And this paper goes through all sorts of things, such as bovine potentials, bovine surfaces, and all that sort of thing, and determines that, if we go to higher multiples, you can start to recover something that looks vaguely like an Eldritch horror version of a cow. The last one is the cow for reference. So yeah, as you head up to more and more complexity in your model, you can sort of recover a cow. I think we might just stick to the spherical ones. Thank you, everyone.